Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Ghostbusters, brought to us by Activision. While released on multiple systems of the time, the NES version was actually made by Bits Laboratory, a Japanese company, and they made the action sequences a lot harder, giving the game a lot of the reasons why a lot of people don't like it. While based on the movie, the goal in the game is actually to just go around, collect ghosts, and get enough money to buy items, eventually entering the main Zuul Building, and going through and defeating Gozer on top. The game's become rather infamous not only for its bad gameplay, but its pretty bad English as well. So here we go with Ghostbusters for the NES. After some pretty terrible NES voice acting, we go to the main screen of the game. You can then select where you want to go to. We're going to be going to the shop first because we actually have to buy our equipment in order to actually catch the ghost in the game. Here we're going to buy ourselves the capture beam and the super trap especially. The super trap allows us to catch an unlimited amount of ghosts, while the normal trap you actually have to empty, so there's really no point in buying the normal trap. You then move around the main screen until a building flashes, in which case you can then go to it in order to catch the ghost. Here we have the ghost catching scene, and your goal is to collect as many of the ghosts as you possibly can using your trap during a short period of time in order to collect money. The more ghosts you catch with one single shot gets you more money. Once you've collected all the ghosts on one screen, you go back to the main map, where you can move around and go to another building and collect more ghosts. Our goal in the game is just to keep going around collecting as many ghosts as possible while the PK energy goes up. After a certain amount of ghosts have been caught, you're actually able to enter the Zuul Building, the final area of the game. However, you can't enter it until it tells you to. One of the main problems though in the game is you actually only have a small window to go inside the building, which is easily missed, as well as if you want to go get the items you're going to need for the Zuul Building, you're going to have to go back to the shop. And once you go back to the shop, you're no longer able to enter the Zuul Building. So you have to go around and collect even more ghosts to get inside that building. On the main map screen of the game, you control the Ghostbusters logo and you move it around in order to enter the buildings. How it works though is the longer you move around the map screen, the longer distance you'll have to travel to that building. So if on the map you go right to the next building next to you and go to that, you'll have a very short distance to get there. However, if you get back to the main map and travel all the way around going through all the streets and then go to a building, you'll have to travel all that distance in order to get there. So that's what can really waste your gas overall. If you end up running out of fuel, you'll have to go to the gas station and the Ghostbusters will actually have to push the vehicle there, taking a large amount of time. Thankfully though, there are gas barrels available on the street sequences for you to hit in order to get more fuel. And as long as you keep the distance between when you go from building to building short, you shouldn't have too much trouble running out of fuel. The biggest problems with the game is that it's just overall really boring to play. Most of the time you're just spent on the driving sequence and then collecting the same 4 ghosts at every single building you go to. Of course, the Zuul Building itself and the final boss battle are different, but since that's the end of the game, most of the game is just spent collecting these same 4 ghosts over and over again. Also, since the ghosts move so sporadically, it can be really hard sometimes to actually get them clumped together so you can actually capture all 4 at once for the money bonus. One funny thing is you actually can cross the streams, which is highly warned against in the film. When you do so, however, the Ghostbusters turn into a weird bunch of pixels, but then you just go right back to the main map screen and nothing happens. You don't lose any money, you don't get a game over, and since there's no lives to lose in the game, you don't lose any of them either. After we have a good amount of money, we're going to go back to the ghost shop. I'm going to be buying the ghost vacuum as well as the ghost alarm. The ghost vacuum is actually pretty handy. While driving in the driving sequences, ghosts will actually appear during here. And if you drive underneath of them, the ghost vacuum will actually suck them up and you'll get a little bit of extra money. While the ghost alarm allows the buildings to flash even when you're not near them. Normally, you actually have to move around the map screen and get the logo close to a building, and then it will flash red if it's infested. However, with the alarm, you'll be able to see every building that's infested while even standing still on the map. Be very careful during the driving sequences that even though you move faster while being at the very top of the screen, it's probably best to stay near the middle of the screen overall, because you have less chance of running into the other cars on the street, which ends up costing you money. By now, I'm sure you're also pretty sick of the Ghostbusters theme still playing in the background of the game. This is one of those games that you definitely either want to play on mute, or you want to blare something else while playing it, because the Ghostbusters theme will probably cause you to go insane by the end of the game. Normally when playing the game, my main goal is just to buy my normal equipment at the very beginning, get a lot of money as quick as I possibly can, and then when I get my first opportunity to enter the Zuul Building, I then go back to the shop, buy the equipment I need for the Zuul Building, and then go around continuing to collect ghosts until I can re-enter that building and finally complete the game. During this run, I did want to show a little bit more off of the game, so that's why I ended up going back to the shop already and get that vacuum and the alarm itself. While catching the ghosts themselves, use your beam the best that you can and try to get as many of the ghosts as you can inside the beam so that you actually can control them while moving back and forth. You can actually control either of the Ghostbusters during this sequence. By hitting the select button, you'll switch over to the Ghostbuster on the right, so you can actually capture all the ghosts and then bring them to the center near the trap, where you can actually get them all captured. While you probably noticed on the main map, I'm able to enter the Zuul Building now, but I don't have quite enough money yet in order to buy all the equipment I need for the building, so I'm going to go around and collect a few more ghosts and then go to the shop. Once back at the shop, you can then sell the ghost alarm and the ghost vacuum since we aren't going to need them. And the two items you really need for the Zuul Building itself is the ghost food, as well as the anti-ghost suit. The food will allow us to lure the ghost downwards during the Zuul Building segment, and we can actually use it multiple times in the building, while the anti-ghost suit gives us 2 more hits to our lives while in the Zuul Building. I'll explain a little bit more about the Zuul Building when we actually get to it. But I really do recommend, if you don't already have one hooked up, get the turbo controller because you're going to need it for that building. Since we already bought all our equipment, this part of the game is a little bit boring because we're just going to be going around and fighting some ghosts so that the Zuul Building will reopen up. You can remain at the main map and just wait a very, very long time, and eventually you should be able to enter the Zuul Building again, but I find it much easier and faster just to go around and collect some more ghosts, and then the Zuul Building will open itself up. I don't really know what activates the Zuul Building. I played the game a lot of times trying to figure out exactly what causes it, like how much PK energy you need or how many ghosts you need to collect, but I'm not able to get a direct answer, so it's pretty random overall when you finally can enter that building. Another thing funny about the game is that the Ghostbusters theme plays for so long, but eventually it comes to a dead stop at the end of the song, and for a few seconds you think it's just going to be silence, but then all of a sudden the Ghostbusters theme kicks right back up and you're listening to it all over again. It's now finally time to enter the Zuul Building, so it's pretty much going to be time to use the turbo controller while going through. There was one other item we could have bought, but it's the most expensive item and takes the longest to get. The sound generator allows you to actually slow down the ghost during this segment, so it becomes a little bit easier. During the Zuul Building segment, we actually have to climb up floor by floor to get to the top. In order to do so, though, you have to keep mashing the A button while controlling your Ghostbusters to move them. And just so you know, I am using the turbo button during this segment because I can't beat it otherwise. At any time, you can drop the ghost food if you bought it by pressing the start button. Go up the stairs and just wait for the ghost to slowly move down to the food itself, and when they reach the bottom, then you can start moving back up the staircases. Every time a ghost hits you, you'll hear a sound, and after 3 hits you'll fall down unless you have the anti-ghost suit, in which case it'll actually be 5 hits until you fall down. If you fall down 3 times, the game is over and you have to start all over again. The ghosts are almost impossible to judge overall, and the best way I find to deal with them is to stay near the door on the floor, and you can actually open it up with the B button. The problem with this is inside every one of the doors there's a possibility of a ghost being inside, and he's actually able to knock you instantly over and it counts as one of your falls. However, by opening the door, you can manipulate the ghosts and cause them to change direction. You can only use the ghost food a handful of times, so use it wisely, and only use it probably once every 5 or so floors. Whenever you have a clean opening from the ghosts themselves, immediately dash for it. You don't get too many opportunities of an open area during this staircase, so when you have it, definitely use it to your advantage. When you travel upwards, you'll see that the ghost food slowly stays where it is, and then the ghosts actually travel upwards with you. But as long as the ghost food is on screen, those ghosts will go for it and stay near the bottom of the screen. So use this the best that you can in order to manipulate them and try to get up these stairs. There's a total of 23 floors for you to climb up, and it gets really boring and monotonous very quickly. And since you have so limited health, this is probably one of the most frustrating parts of any video game available for the NES. Since there was many versions of this game created, the other systems versions of the game end up being a lot easier to get up these stairs. But while they are a lot easier, they're still extremely tough, and every version of the Ghostbusters game is really tough to beat. Interesting though about the other versions of the game is most of them, when you beat the game, contain a password that you could then enter and then start the game all over again. However, you would keep the amount of money that you gained during your previous run. Unfortunately, the NES version decided to just end the game at the end, and they have one of the worst spelling mistakes of all time in any NES title. It's also funny to note that in the Ghostbusters video game that was released just a few years ago for PS3, Xbox 360, and PC, you can actually find a computer in it that has the dialogue or text from the ending of this game on it. After chugging up 23 flights of stairs, the Ghostbusters run towards the final door that you can now fight Gozer on top of the building. This ends up being the funnest part of the game, but is actually really tough to get through. Just like the staircase scene though, you have a limited amount of hits you can take before you end up getting a game over. The mini ghosts that are flying around during this segment are pretty much an instant kill, while the normal projectiles you can get hit by a few times before dying. Do your best to dodge left, right, up, and down, but do not go too far down because you'll end up going to the screen below. When you do that, you'll see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man slowly climbing up the building, and if you go down too many times, he's near the top of it, and you actually get a game over that way. Since the ghosts are probably your biggest threat during this, try to do your best to take them out before they get too far down on the screen. You can only hit Gozer directly in about her head area, and a lot of the ghosts will actually block your shots, but don't worry, just keep moving and keep trying to shoot at her, and eventually you should be able to get enough hits in to defeat her. Once she's finally taken care of, the screen will flash a few times and then you get your great ending screen. After some of the greatest English of all time, we then get our credits. Ghostbusters for the NES has become pretty infamous for bad licensed games of this era. And to be honest, if they just added a little bit more variety and fixed some of the bigger problems, it wouldn't have been a terrible overall experience. After the credits, it then goes back to the title screen where you can start the game all over again. And with that, it's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.